Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in as we wrap up another week. The birds are starting to chirp in Minnesota. A Minnesota woman convicted in one of the state's largest fraud schemes alleged in a jailhouse interview that Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison were aware of widespread fraud well before federal prosecutors stepped in. We have some jailhouse talk for you in today's show. Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice made the first arrest yesterday in what is being promised as just the beginning of a crackdown on the agitators who disrupted a church in St. Paul, Minnesota last Sunday. Meanwhile, a federal magistrate judge has rejected the Justice Department's attempt to bring charges against former CNN host Don Lemon, who was also there. He was involved in this anti-ICE protest that disrupted the church service in St. Paul. We have a full update for you. And Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette joins us today for her response to what looks like the end of potentially closing primaries in South Carolina, for this year anyway, and the latest out of Minnesota.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but you know they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
So here we go. A Minnesota woman convicted in one of the state's largest fraud schemes says, well, Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, they knew all about it. Aimee Bock is her name, former head of the nonprofit Feeding Our Future. She spoke with Fox News from Sherburne County Jail in Minnesota, claiming that state officials continued approving and paying claims even after concerns were raised about potential fraud. Bock alleged the state-approved program sponsors and responsible for monitoring claims, but officials repeatedly failed to investigate or stop suspicious companies after she flagged them. She told Fox News, quote, I honestly believe Keith Ellison and Governor Walz need to be held accountable. There needs to be an investigation done if they weren't aware. That's concerning, she said. I have to believe that the governor's office and Keith Ellison's office were aware of this. They've said they were involved in helping the FBI. They said they were made aware, but apparently I'm scary, so they couldn't do anything. Now, in response, spokesperson for Ellison's office said that Bock lacked credibility, pointing out her federal prison sentence, saying she is a liar, fraudster, and manipulator of the highest order who has never acknowledged or accepted her guilt. Now she's on a media tour to deflect her guilt onto others instead of finally taking responsibility for the fraud scheme she ran. Now, you have to admit that a jailhouse snitch is not traditionally the most reliable of witnesses, right? But you also have to think about this, because from day one, we have all had our suspicions on how this continued to happen year after year at such a large scale, and that somebody in Minnesota didn't know what was going on, right? I mean, let's look back. We've seen video, we've seen reports from back in 2015, 16, 17 from a local Fox affiliate there telling us some of the same stuff that we learned from the daycare fraud, for example. Similar videos going to daycare centers where they were closed. Same with the food programs. And it was like nobody paid attention or nobody cared or nobody did anything. Just let the money keep coming. So it is a little suspect. And you do want to think, well, maybe there's something here. Federal prosecutors have said that the scheme involved more than $250 million in stolen taxpayer funds intended to feed children during the COVID-19 pandemic. Just coming up with sham restaurants, setting up to falsely claim that they were reimbursed for feeding these kids. Now, Governor Walz's office did not want to respond to Fox News, but that's not unusual. The House Oversight Committee said last week that the Department of Justice has charged 98 defendants in Minnesota fraud-related cases, 85 of whom are Somali descent. 64 defendants have already been convicted. Representative James Comer, chairman of the Oversight Committee, said the DOJ has issued more than 1,750 subpoenas, executed over 130 search warrants, and conducted more than 1,000 witness interviews in what officials describe as a sweeping federal probe. Now, Comer said federal prosecutors estimated at least $9 billion has been stolen across multiple fraud schemes in Minnesota. $9 billion stolen in Minnesota. In a statement, he said, the breadth and depth of this fraud is breathtaking, and I fear it is just the tip of the iceberg. Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, Minnesota's Democrat leadership have either been asleep at the wheel or complicit in these crimes. They failed Minnesotans and all Americans, handing millions of taxpayer money to fraudsters. I got to believe that we are just hitting the tip of the iceberg. And it won't surprise me at all that part of what this lady is accusing the governor's office of, you know, there's always some truth to just about anything. It won't surprise me if, in fact, we learn, maybe the governor didn't know, but somebody in his office knew. Someone in Keith Ellison's office knew. Somebody in the mayor's office, Mayor Fry, knew. We'll continue to watch this because this story is not going away anytime soon. Meanwhile, and a little bit later, we're going to get into some of the arrests yesterday of the people who were protesting in the church Sunday. The person who wasn't arrested, though, and doesn't look like he's going to be held accountable, a federal magistrate judge has rejected the Justice Department's attempt to bring charges against former CNN host Don Lemon. This, of course, following his involvement in the anti-ICE protests that disrupted the church service. Now, Lemon, of course, claims he was there just to report on it. Don Lemon hasn't reported on anything since he was fired from CNN. Now, to be clear up front, the judge did not rule on whether what happened inside the church was appropriate or justified or moral. The ruling was narrow. It focused on whether the government had enough to bring criminal charges against Lemon personally. The judge said no. So legally, for now, it looks like Don Lemon's going to walk. Doesn't mean the story ends, though. Not even close. Again, Don Lemon was with the group. You may recall initially he claimed he knew nothing about what was going to happen, that he just happened to get a tip and went out to report. We later learned he had been with the group prior to going to the church as they were organizing and coordinating this disruption. He live streamed the event, telling viewers this was about the freedom to protest and the First Amendment. At one point, Lemon entered the church ahead of the protesters, saying he wanted to see what was happening. So he wanted to get in there and get set up so he could see what they were doing. Soon after, the protest erupted inside the sanctuary, shouting, chaos, service interrupted. Lemon was there to document it all. He later referred to the action as a clandestine mission, said disruption is sometimes necessary to make people feel uncomfortable. So I guess it's okay to go into a church, disrupt the service, if you feel like they need to feel a little uncomfortable, and Don Lemon gets to choose that. Because this wasn't a street protest, because this wasn't a rally outside of a government building, this was a church service. I think that somebody has to be held accountable. Don Lemon, one of those. Now, there were some arrests yesterday. Some people are going to be held accountable. And we're going to dive into that in just a few minutes. Attorney General Pam Bondi has warned no one is above the law. I got a feeling that they're not going to just drop this because a judge said that Don Lemon could not be held responsible. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon made the issue pretty clear in early remarks. Journalism is not a shield if someone is actively participating in a potential crime. You tell me, should Don Lemon be charged for the role he played in that disruption of that church? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. It's not your fault that losing weight is getting harder and harder. You're eating better, you're moving more, but your body isn't responding the way it used to. That's not willpower, that's metabolism. And believe me, I've learned so much about the metabolism from the folks at PhD Weight Loss, and it's made a huge difference in my life. Joey Hudson here. For many people, years of dieting quietly slows the metabolic system down, so the harder you try, the less progress you see. At PhD Weight Loss, they help people identify what's actually blocking fat loss, and they fix the root cause, not just count calories. If you want to understand why your body isn't cooperating, call PhD Weight Loss now and mention Fix My Weight Loss to unlock the New Year's special. It's free, it's personalized, and it could explain everything. Call 864-644-1900 and say Fix My Weight Loss. That's 864-644-1900 and say Fix My Weight Loss to get started today. You can also find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com. Start the new year off right and fix your weight loss. So I want to go back and visit again the arrests that were made yesterday and the disruption of the church service on Sunday and who may or may not be held responsible. I told you a little earlier in today's show that a judge yesterday says that Don Lemon cannot be charged. But Attorney General Pam Bondi made it very clear after this happened that she was going to hold some people responsible. And she even said, and she went to Minneapolis in the St. Paul area herself. A number of her staff went there to start investigating. Now, we saw the players. We saw this lady, Nakima Levy Armstrong. She posted on her X account this later the afternoon after the church service had been disrupted. She said, "Friends, here's a clip of our demonstration this morning at City's Church in St. Paul. David Easterwood is a pastor at this church and the acting field director for the ICE office in St. Paul. It's time for judgment to begin, and it will begin in the house of God. Thank you to all of the activists who showed up and independent journalists." Now, she named Don Lemon. He was tagged on this. So she's taking full credit for the disruption. She's taking full credit for calling out Pastor David Easterbrook. Now, again, I don't know for sure. I don't know that he has denied being part of ICE. I honestly don't know if it's been confirmed either. But does it matter? If Pastor Easterwood is actually also an ICE officer or part of ICE, does that matter? I've said before, sometimes, unfortunately, for pastors, the church can't totally support them, and they have to have outside jobs outside of the church. So if he works for ICE, if he works for the federal government, but still is a pastor for this church, so what? How is that a conflict of interest? He's not making arrests in the church. He's not luring people in the church to arrest them. So let's go to Attorney General Pam Bondi's X account yesterday. And by the way, you can kind of follow the timeline here because I posted these yesterday. If you're not following me on X already, let me ask you to do so. If you're on X, if you like that platform, just search for Joey Hudson. Be sure and follow me. So yesterday morning, we got this first post from the official Attorney General Pamela Bondi account. It said, "Minutes ago, at my direction, HSI and the FBI executed an arrest in Minnesota. So far, we've arrested Nakima Levy Armstrong, who allegedly played a key role in organizing the coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. We will share more updates as they become available. Listen loud and clear, she said. We do not tolerate attacks on places of worship. And she had that in all caps. That was a big milestone in this investigation, that they made this arrest fairly quickly. I know some of you wanted it to happen faster than yesterday, but I also have had some comments from you, texting me, emailing me, and it's always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com, that you question whether Pam Bondi would really do anything anyway. Well, she proved it yesterday. Just a little while later, she followed up. Update. A second arrest has been made at my direction. Chantel Louisa Allen has been taken into custody. More to come. She once again said, we will protect our houses of worship. So who are these two people? You've heard me talking about Nakima Armstrong a number of times. She is a professional agitator, and she's proud of it. She doesn't try to hide the fact that she likes to create chaos. That's what she does. I don't know who pays her. She raises the money. I guess groups like George Soros funds her so that she can go out and do this. She was very involved in Black Lives Matter protests back during George Floyd. So is this Chantel Louisa Allen. This lady, Ms. Allen, is a member of the St. Paul School Board and a community organizer. She's known for her activism, including leading protests related to social justice issues. She gained attention for her role in organizing a protest where she disrupts service at restaurants in the area, I'm told. So back to Miss Armstrong. She's one of the organizers. She's made it very clear that she was in that post, and she has that post tagged because she's very proud of it. She appeared on CNN yesterday because I believe after Attorney General Pam Bondi made it clear that some action was going to take place, I think Miss Armstrong may have started getting a little nervous because she went on to CNN's Erin Burnett Out Front show. This was Wednesday. She was asked about whether the Justice Department had contacted her since threatening a crackdown on the protesters who were involved on Sunday. She said that she had not been contacted, but she wanted to correct the record. Suddenly she's having a change of heart. She wants us to think that what we saw in those videos really didn't happen. Here's what Miss Armstrong told Erin Burnett on CNN.
And I do want to correct something that was said in the beginning. We did not rush into that church. We actually went and sat down and participated in the service. And after the pastor prayed, that is when I stood up and asked him a question in response to his prayer. And then he responded to me. And then I proceeded to ask him about Pastor David Easterwood and how is it possible for him to serve as both the pastor and the director of ICE for Minnesota. And instead of responding to me, as soon as I said the name David Easterwood, the pastor says, shame, shame. And that is when I led us in chants, justice for Renee Good and hands up, don't shoot. So I want to clarify that. We didn't rush in. We didn't bust in. We were a part of the service until I got up and posed that question to the pastor.
Oh, okay. Well, that clears it up, doesn't it? What an idiot. She was upset because the pastor was saying shame, shame. First off, what church have you ever been in where someone like this lady asked the pastor a question? Unless the pastor opened it up for questioning, which I don't think he did. She was trying to rewrite the narrative because I think she probably had the suspicion that Pam Bondi was serious when she said she's going to bust these people, that she's going to crack down, and that there's going to be some arrests made. When she says, oh, we didn't rush into the church, why were you in the church to begin with? Is there any scenario that it is wrong if, in fact, this pastor does work for ICE? Is there any scenario where it justifies these other families, these children who are in that church service on Sunday, being terrified with this bunch of lunatics walking and screaming and hollering in this church service? Any scenario whatsoever. I'd love to hear from you if you think that this had any semblance of appropriateness for a church service to be disrupted like this. Text me, email me, leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. 864-477-5639. Leave me a message. By the way, always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com. Mike Lindell still has some beginning of the year specials. The standard MyPillows, $14.98 when you use promo code Joey. The slippers, the towel, 6-piece towel set. Just some great products. The mattress topper. Go to MyPillow.com, use promo code Joey. But leave me a message. I really want to hear from you. And I'd love to hear from somebody who thinks that I'm all wet on this, that I'm wrong, that it's okay for a church service to be disrupted. I don't know why I have enjoyed this this so much, seeing this lady arrested. And this comes on the heels. I told you yesterday about Sonny Hostin complaining that the president was holding up these mug shots of these black and brown people, and she was encouraging them to sue the president for defamation. Well, add 2 more mug shots to your list there, Sonny Hostin, because these are 2 black women who were arrested yesterday. Now, I haven't been able to get my hands on a mug shot yet. We did get a photo of Miss Armstrong being let out in handcuffs. That's almost as good. Again, I hate that she was in jail, but she had it coming, didn't she? She has been a key organizer of boycotts, of protests, of just hateful things, and you just can't keep doing that. She's going to be held accountable. Now, she'll probably be turned into a martyr. Who knows? But at least we got to see her in handcuffs yesterday. Text me, email me, joeyhudson.com. We've talked about the effort in South Carolina to close the primaries. Post-Courier published an article about this. This past Wednesday, the South Carolina House of Representatives, their subcommittee, heard testimony on a couple of competing bills. The Post-Courier writes, Republican purists wanted state house legislation passed this year, closing primaries to only registered members of political parties. That effort now seems to be dead for the year. In a surprise development, the 2 proposals being considered in the House of Representatives emerged as too toxic to some, likely ending either's chance of passing in 2026. Now, in that sentence, in a surprising development, there's nothing surprising about that at all. When we had such a bloodbath, and we really did, you had people coming out of the woodwork, just going after state GOP chairman Drew McKissick. You had people on that side of the aisle going after the Freedom Caucus because, unfortunately, this is what we're seeing too often within the Republican Party. We're fighting among ourselves, and this got really nasty. So one plan was backed by House leadership, and that was the plan that the GOP, the state GOP executive committee, had voted to endorse, were supporting, and that's the plan that Drew McKissick was supporting. The other was by what the Post and Courier has described, a more activist wing of the party led by members of the hard right-wing House Freedom Caucus. Again, this is the description from the Post and Courier. So this past Wednesday, lawmakers on the subcommittee declined to take a vote on either bill before their self-imposed legislative deadline, which was Wednesday, came about. So it means it's probably dead. It would take a miracle pretty much to revive either bill. One of the bill sponsors, House Majority Whip Brandon Newton, who sponsored the House leadership version of the bill, also said that he was wary of sparking what he called an active civil war over these 2 concepts, given the inter-party differences. Well, and he described that very, very well. It was becoming a civil war. So here's what we had. One proposal, which was backed by the Freedom Caucus, would require voters to register with a political party within 60 days of the primary election. The other competing bill, which was backed by House leadership, would have had a more lenient 45-day limit on prospective primary voters. But it would have also put limits on who could run, requiring prospective candidates to seek a waiver from their respective political party if they had failed to vote in at least 2 out of the last 3 primary elections. That was the provision that had me concerned. I like the Freedom Caucus bill, but, and one of the arguments, though, against the House leadership bill or the Republican Party bill was they didn't like the idea of the limits for a candidate, which made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. How do you, for years, and we've been talking about this for literally decades. I had Representative Mike Burns on last week, great friend of mine. I have great respect for Representative Burns. He was a sponsor on both bills, but he primarily supported the Freedom Caucus bill. I think it was 3310. And I asked him about that, about why would you not have some type of criteria for a candidate? And we have a situation right now developing in the state. You have Democrat solicitor David Pascoe from the lower part of the state who is going to run for attorney general. He's announced that, his intentions. Of course, filing doesn't open until next month, but he's running. He's actively running. And he's been a Democrat his whole elected life. He's always run as a Democrat and been elected as a Democrat. Suddenly, he wants to seek a statewide office, and a Republican has not been elected to the Attorney General's office since like 1990. David Pascoe is a smart guy. He understood that there's no way a Democrat can be elected to Attorney General, so last spring, he suddenly started identifying as a Republican. Well, under the party-backed bill, the House leadership bill, he could not have done that without a waiver from the party, which meant that the executive committee, not Drew McKissick, but the executive committee of the entire state, each county has one representative, would have had to voted to give him a waiver to participate in a party primary. That provision was in there so that there would be a way to if you had, let's say, for example, maybe somebody had moved to the state, I guess, or maybe a younger person who hadn't had the opportunity to vote in 3 primaries. That was the reason the provision was in there. One of the criticisms I kept hearing from people, well, that lets Drew do what he wants to. If Drew wants to give you a waiver, fine. No, that's not the case. The whole party, the executive committee would have to approve that. And again, every county has representation. Now, the Post and Courier continued to write, both bills were long shots to become law. The Senate has long been reluctant to take on closed primaries, while Governor Henry McMaster told reporters earlier this month he planned to veto either bill if they made it to his desk, saying he believed the potential was too great to disenfranchise casual voters who might wait until the last second to register. That's been one of the criticisms of it, is that if you, and look, we have, maybe 18, 20% at times of people who vote who don't identify with either party. They consider themselves independents. And some people think, well, they should be allowed to vote in primaries. Again, I'm not sure I buy that. Party primaries are so parties can nominate their candidates. And I'm good with that. But I also think parties should have a bigger role. Back when I was a party chairman, people would complain because someone was running and they didn't think they were a true Republican. They thought I could keep them from running. I couldn't. If somebody wants to file, they can file. We were finally going to put some guardrails in place, and the most conservative wing of the party was fighting it. It made no sense other than the fact David Pascoe has done a magnificent job of convincing those people that, the party leadership, the powers that be, the House leadership, they don't want me running because I'm a corruption buster. I'm going to go in. They don't want me in office because I will bust up their fraud in Columbia. And he's been a great solicitor. I'll give him that. But he's a Democrat. He's always been a Democrat until the last, 6-8 months, not quite a year. So anyway, as a result of this, and this was my prediction, when the Post and Courier said in a surprise development, it wasn't a surprise at all. I knew this was going to happen. I knew that with all of this infighting, Republicans couldn't come together. Now, Representative Burns, he told me, I asked him the question, would he consider amending his other version of the bill, 3310, I think it was, to put some type of candidate qualifications? He said yes, and that's what should have happened. Rather than infighting, the GOP members of the State House should have come together and thought, all right, how do we pass this? How do we make this happen? They didn't, and once again, we're going to continue to have open primaries. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. Joining me on the guest line, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette. Welcome. And do you have your milk and bread and supplies? You ready to kind of hunker down for the ice storm?
Well, I sent David out yesterday while I was in Columbia. And so he said, up here in TR, no bread. By the time he went, he got some milk, got some eggs. So I think he said the shelves were looking pretty bare already. So hopefully we got a few days. So if you didn't get out yesterday, they were going to restock today. Hopefully Joey and everybody can get what they need.
Yep. Well, it's just crazy how I saw people posting the lines out the doors for people trying to get into the grocery store. So I did not even try it. Now I may be hungry, but I didn't try it yesterday. I'll get out maybe sometime today or tomorrow and try to get stocked up. It was a busy day in Columbia yesterday. The South Carolina House held a hearing on the two competing primary bills, H 3643 and 3310. And as I understand things, there was not a vote taken in the subcommittee, so I guess that means it's probably dead this year, right?
I'm not sure if it means it's dead or if it means there was just a lot of debate. I came back to the State House in the afternoon, and that's when I found out that there wasn't a vote. So we'll see what the House does. All eyes are on that. Republicans have been speaking loudly. We want our primaries closed. We want Republicans voting in Republican primaries. Seems to make some common sense, doesn't it?
I would think so.
Republicans should choose their nominee.
Yep. Well, it's not a good sign considering all the other issues that they have to try to get wrapped up to finish up this session a little later in the spring. I'm sure you've been watching the World Trade Forum like the rest of the world. President Trump said late yesterday afternoon that he has a deal on Greenland, so he'll not impose additional tariffs. What do you think that deal might look like?
I think it's gonna look like a positive thing for the United States, because that's what President Trump does. Every time he decides to engage on an issue, he makes sure that he's keeping America safe and Americans safe, always watching out for our businesses and our workers. And so I didn't doubt him for a minute, Joey. Did you? I figured if he had his eyes set on Greenland, and this is not a new issue. It's so interesting to me that the Democrats look at this like this is just something President Trump dreamed up. But literally, there has been talk for years about having more control in Greenland because it protects everyone. President Trump articulated it very well. We have China mulling around in the Arctic. You have Russia mulling around in the Arctic, and we need to keep America safe. This deal that President Trump is trying to put together doesn't just keep America safe, it keeps Europe safe also.
Yeah.
So very proud of what he's done over there.
Yeah, it was typical Trump. As he was headed over there, he had a news conference at the White House. He was asked how far he would go in reference to Greenland. And, of course, his answer was wait and see. Well, that kind of put everybody on edge, which is exactly what he wanted. And so you had everybody talking about it. What's going to happen? Is Trump going to send troops? Is he going to invade? Well, it was just all part of his negotiation. I mean, that's how he does. Because by the time he got there, of course, he had a slight delay. You heard about the airplane having to turn around and come back, electrical issue.
Absolutely.
You may have to loan him Palmetto 2 or something like that for him to move around in. But he had.
I don't think we could just fit a few of his staff with him in Palmetto too, but it's okay. We don't have quite the luxury that Air Force One does.
Yeah, but he had everybody had it all staged. He got there and he did what Trump does, and it looks like that there's a deal that's real close. He announced that the additional tariffs are off, so we'll see. It's going to be quite interesting. Did you also happen to see? California Governor Gavin Newsom, he went on a tirade the very first day about Trump, about other world leaders. Well, yesterday afternoon, he was set to speak. The organizers at the last minute canceled the speech. They told him that he would not be needed.
Well, that's what he does. That's how he gets attention, right? Is he tries to, we've seen politicians over time like to say, any press is good press. I don't know that I believe that always,
yep.
But kudos to our very own Scott Bassett, right?
Yes.
Raised in Little River.
Yes.
I mean, lived in Charleston, took on Gavin Newsom head to head, and pretty much put him in his place. So you don't often see that. Scott is a amazing, brilliant business mind, and he usually sticks with the facts, but it was interesting to see him put Gavin Newsom in his place. I think, there's one more for South Carolina, 0 for California. I love it.
Yep. Well, send Gavin Newsom back home. Kind of off topic, but I got to ask you, and I know you don't watch The View, but did you happen to hear about Sonny Hostin recommending to the illegals that they sue President Trump for defamation because he held up their mugshots? Now, here's the thing. She went on this whole thing about, there's no data to support this. And I'm sitting there thinking, if it's a mugshot, if they had a mugshot, then they were arrested for something.
Well, Joey, I mean, when you listen to the reports of the people they're picking up, I mean, the amount of criminals is in the high 90s. So, yes. Would we hope that everybody that when they're going into a place where they have credible evidence, that nobody that isn't a criminal may get swooped up in it? We would hope that, but that's not realistic. It's why our parents always told us, be careful of the friends you keep, right?
Yep.
You might not be doing something wrong, but if somebody else is, you might get swept up into it. So, I just think always we need to support our law enforcement. This is why I am pushing really hard, lots of friends in the General Assembly, to get the HALO Act passed. Mm-hmm. And, we have got to get that through, because every time I turn on the TV and I see law enforcement, whether it's federal, state, or local, getting surrounded by, protesters, they're up in their face. The HALO Act will force protesters to stay 25 feet away while law enforcement or first responders are in the process of doing their job. Yeah. And that keeps everybody safe.
Yeah, that is much needed, and we will we'll start calling our state reps and state senators and ask them to support that for sure. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, always a pleasure. Be safe.
You too, everybody. Listen to the weather. Stock up on what you need. When the ice starts to build up, please stay in your homes. And let's all get through this. Here in South Carolina, we are resilient. We'll get through it once again.
Absolutely. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.